Hi there, I'm Liz Bernard, the Senior Animation Supervisor on the Electric State here at Digital Domain. I'll kick this off first with our sizzle reel from the show so that you can see some of the work that we did. So here we go.
Come on, help me unload this stuff.
Say it. Why do you want me to help you?
Come on, will you please just knock it off for once?
So you're gonna do it by yourself then?
I would like your help because things are very heavy and you're so much stronger than me, Herman. Happy now?
Oh, I'm so proud of you. It's healthy to admit these things, right?
Pardon me for trying to assist law enforcement. Get behind Penny! I am not dying of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch!
I actually like this song.
Let's play ball! What in the hell does the United States Postal Service need that for?
I've got a body size for every job.
There's a Martian base just past the asteroid field.
Oh, he got me in the hammy! Oh, we're going down! No, no! Who's wrong for a friend? Son of a...
Hey, you ever seen these guys before?
Dude, we don't all know each other. Hey, I better not see one ding on that thing.
Too late. I must ask you to halt. Right there.
Watch where you're sticking that thing.
Prepare yourselves to witness the wonderment, to behold the beguiling. I command this gate to rise! Are you not amazed?
Afternoon. I'd tip my hat, but well, it's bolted on. Our people are free.
Your people ain't people.
No food!
What are you talking about? There's egg nuts. Everybody likes egg nuts.
I'm not eating the freaking Masters of the Universe tie-in Zag nuts in the original packaging, okay? I'm not gonna eat it! It's money! Look at me. Herm, look at me.
I am looking at you.
Did you unplug this and take my extension cord to your charging station?
No,
You're blinking. I can see that you're blinking, so I know that you're lying. Okay.
I'm not
So you
lying.
did take it. Now, what I need is for you to admit it. All relationships are built on trust. Just tell me that you took it, and I won't get mad.
I took the cord.
God bless America!
So that bit between Keats and Herman's cracks me up absolutely every single time. So this film was based on a 2018 dystopian science fiction illustrated novel by the Swedish artist Simon Stålenhag. The book is set in kind of an alternate 1990s, a time ravaged by excessive use of technology, and it follows a teenage girl and her robot brother on a journey to the west coast of the United States in search of her long-lost brother. These are images straight from the book, which I think is quite beautiful. Here's another one. This book is just full of stunning images of like pieces of atmospheric art like this, very, very dark. And each one of these pages is like the most beautiful concept art that you could imagine. So I reckon the production designer had a really nice head start on this film. So let me start out with some stats to give you a sense of the scope of our work on this project. We did 857 final shots, but we worked on over 1,000, including omits and reshoots, because that's how it goes. Digital Domain specifically designed and built 61 different characters in total, with an additional 46 coming from other companies that sort of shared the load. 245 artists, production folks, pipeline, and software specialists contributed over the course of about 2.5 years. This was an absolutely huge show for us. We ended up creating nearly an hour's worth of material, much of it heavy performance work. We collaborated with ILM Storm Studios in Norway and One of Us in the UK. And just to talk really quickly about Autodesk specifically, at VD, we use Maya for most of our front-end departments, integration and animation, of course. We use Golem for crowds simulations. And of course, everybody uses ShotGrid, AKA Flow. Production tracking is, I think, the whole very long name for that software these days. Yeah, so next up, let's talk characters, get to the meat and potatoes. So this film has quite a few more characters than the book did. Cosmo is one of the ones pulled right from the pages of the book. He can't really speak. He's just got this painted on face. And he communicates solely through body language and these kind of canned voice recordings from the Kid Cosmo cartoon that Michelle and her brother watched growing up. Stuff like, the solar system's gone haywire, when he was expressing frustration at the state of the world. Maybe I'll steal that one to use myself. Cosmo was a main character, so he needed to be able to do a lot physically and emotionally. But his proportions from the book were pretty wacky. His feet are huge. He's got this lollipop head that's absolutely enormous. He's got big white glove hands. And so he has this like very top and bottom heavy silhouette with spindly little limbs and a little tiny body in between. And that odd anatomy gave his movements a kind of giant clown shoe shuffle, which I think turned out pretty charming. You can see in this shot that even though we had an actor on set who was close to the right size for our CG character, her name is Devin, and she did an absolutely amazing job. But there's just no human out there with exactly those proportions, of course, even when we put a weird dome cage thing on her head, like you're seeing in the plate version of this shot on the left. So we did do a lot of work to get a walk like this working properly. The mocap here is basically all gone. We did start with that, but we threw most of it out in the end and replaced it with hand keyframed animation. And that chain crossing was super tricky because he was holding on to Michelle's hand, but he needed to go over the absolute highest thing that could possibly fit under his butt without him taking like a leap over it and changing the performance. So here's another example of a shot where we had a great performance from Devin that we had to tone down and modify in a lot of subtle ways in order to work with his funky proportions. We did fewer bobs up and down when she's jumping, a lot of extra work on the weight since he's got that big heavy head, and all the while still maintaining that energy and desperation You can see Devin is actually doing a lot with her face, and we didn't have that luxury on Cosmo, of course, so it all had to come through in the body pantomime. So Cosmo's white hands were the brightest part of his body and naturally drew the eye right to them. The hand posing was super duper important. And I've never worked with a character that had a giant freaky smile permanently painted onto his face. So getting him to emote things like pathos and sadness and determination and depth, not so easy with a face like that staring down at you from the Maya viewport. So this is one of the iconic visuals from the film that we pulled straight from the book. Here's the book, gorgeous. At one point, this shot got cut from the film, part of a montage that was no longer really needed. But all of us at DD had kind of poured a lot of our heart and souls into this shot already. We really loved it. We made a big case to the editor. There may have been some begging. And fortunately, the editor agreed to resurrect it, and it made it into the final film. So in addition to subtle body language, like little head tilts and posture changes and hand posing, we also added some gentle flicker into the LED lights that are set deep within his eyes behind a layer of smoked glass. And we could dim and brighten those to reflect his emotional state and help show his thought process when he was reflecting on something. So on to Herman. I love Herman. I think he might be my favorite character. He's loud, he's sarcastic, he's confident, and he can speak. So if you look at the bottom left here, you can see he can also cuss. So he's a bot after my own heart. We got to create Herman in both his 4-foot main form, which is how you saw him in most of the movie. Plus we did a 20-foot version of him as well. And then ILM took our models and tackled the massive 60-foot iteration of Herman and also the itty-bitty 8-inch version of Herman. So these were like Russian nesting dolls almost. Because he was built to lift and move things, we put a lot of time into making sure his beefy joints and pistons were functional and could support the weight that he was expected to carry around in all of his different size iterations. But probably the most unique thing about Herman is his face. So we always knew it was going to be a screen, and we settled with the directors on a look that was based on the old heavy orange and black monochrome monitors of like the late 80s and early 90s, like this one. I did some visual research on YouTube and realized, well, I guess I'm dating myself. The pixels don't actually turn on and off instantly, like you might remember. They do this kind of cross-fading thing from one shape to another over a few frames. And that ended up driving a lot of our choices with Herman's face, because we knew pretty early on that if we had very smooth transitions between all of his expressions, and we animated every single frame, that his facial animation would just turn into this muddy mess of constant cross-fading between different poses. So instead, we developed this staccato style of facial animation where we would land on an expression and hold it for a beat before going on to the next one to keep things looking crisp and period specific to the tech of that time. The transitions between those expressions followed a quadratic decay developed in Houdini by our effects artists, and light fall off that mimicked that look from those monochrome monitors of the time. So since we could draw literally any shape we wanted to on this screen in animation, we had to set some ground rules early on so that Herman would stay on model, as it were. We developed a comprehensive library of about 60 shapes. These are just some of them. We've got way more, including phonemes, emotion shapes, and some goodies like that curse I showed earlier. And then we shared that library with ILM to help their team stay consistent with our look and style that we had developed for the character. And our rigging team really outdid themselves with this setup, writing a custom plugin for Maya and giving us a rig that allowed us to control every single pixel in Herman's 80 by 80 grid that made up his face. And they also gave us the capability to project images onto the face, even animations. At one point, we put the classic game Pong onto Herman's face to show that he was bored and like not really engaged with what was going on around him. But it unfortunately didn't quite make it to the final cut. We ended up using that feature pretty sparingly to make sure that he stayed in character and on model, but we did get a few funny moments out of it, like this one.
It's mine. I shot the guy.
You shot him late. What are you gonna do with a bike?
Sell it.
So on to the next. This is the Marshal, played by Giancarlo Esposito. The Marshal is a little bit different from the other bots. He's actually a drone, meaning that he does not have a mind of his own, but he's directly operated by a human. In this case, Giancarlo's human character in the film, and he's operated by that human in real time. We also helped develop the drone robots, which had the same large elongated heads as the Neurocaster VR helmets that you see in the book, like this one. Each drone's head also showed a video feed of the drone operator, which helped to kind of visually distinguish between the drones and the more sympathetic robots who have their own consciousness. Because the drones were mass-produced by Center, which is Ethan Skate's evil tech company in the film, they didn't have the same personality and nuance as the bots either. They were more disposable stormtrooper than anything else. So both DD and ILM gave the drones this more clunky, heavier style of movement. They were meant to feel very cold and inhuman. But anyway, we were talking about the Marshal. So he was similar tech, but an early model of the Center drones. He dates way back to the robot wars that are mentioned at the beginning of the film. He was a major factor in winning the war for the humans against the bots. So we started with motion capture for most of the Marshal's performances. The mocap performer played the character with kind of a touch of cowboy swagger, which suited Giancarlo's vocal performance really nicely. From there, it was up to us in animation to adjust the movements to make his body feel heavier, his joints stiffer, his range of motion a little bit limited by rust and disrepair. Giancarlo played the Marshal's voice and face with this kind of quiet professionalism and dignity. And even though his drone was a built-to-task bot-killing machine. So when we animated him, we were always looking for a balance between those two things, sort of the restraint of the man behind the drone and the strength and the ruthless violence that he was capable of delivering with that drone body. Now, I should also take a moment to explain, when you begin with this idea of animating characters to look robotic, what does that even mean? On a show with this many characters, it doesn't even always mean the same thing from bot to bot. In the summer of 2023, which I think was pretty early in shot production, we spent some time creating a 4-pack of different movement styles per main character to pitch to the directors. And that's what we're watching here for the Marshal. The styles ranged from smoother and more natural movement in option A to quite stiff and clunky in option D, which is bottom right. I pitched the options that we did for Cosmo, Herman, Mr. Peanut, and the Marshal to Joe and Anthony Russo so that they could choose which style they liked best for the character. And for the Marshal, they ended up, of course, picking a combination of, I think, B and C. So let's call it B.5. But the nice thing about doing it that way early in the process is that early effort gave us really concrete answers for those main characters and also sort of a shared language for the rest of the minor characters later. So this guy recognizes him. So Mr. Peanut was maybe the most challenging character for us. During a big chunk of shot production, we only had temporary audio from another actor, but we knew we were getting a new voice as soon as the double strikes, which are the writers and actors strikes of 2023, as soon as those were going to be over. So we animated a bunch of shots without the vocal performance and then redid most of them after Woody Harrelson was cast and recorded. He's somewhat simpler of a robot. He has a sort of thick like latex shell that had not aged well. It was starting to crack and kind of come apart on the surface. And that was wrapped around an interior metal structure, similar to the mid to late 80s animatronics from like Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza restaurants in the US. So being based on a real corporate mascot, we had a clear and recognizable silhouette that we needed to stick to, plus specific features like that top hat, monocle, cane, bat. Also, just a fun fact, since SIGGRAPH is in Vancouver this year, a man in a Mr. Peanut costume ran for mayor of Vancouver in 1974 with the campaign slogan, "Elect a nut for mayor." He did not win. So Mr. Peanut, as a character, he's a savvy politician. He's a natural leader. He's the founder of this oasis of safety in the desert that he founded. And we realized that if we kept Mr. Peanut as a totally solid peanut shell like he is in the corporate mascot, his body would be too stiff to move, really. To make him walk would mean to like teeter-totter him around like a kid playing with an action figure. So it didn't really feel right for the dignity that this character deserved. So we had to break him up. So first things first, we chopped off his head and gave him an articulated neck. Still pretty limited in mobility, but at least he could like nod and shake his head and look in the direction that he wanted to walk. And then in a further indignity, we sliced off his butt so that we could swivel it like hips. His walk would still be pretty stiff, but it was kind of perfect for his history and the cane, the elderly warble that Woody had given his voice. You know what they say, the eyes are the window into the soul. And we knew from Woody's vocal performance that this character had a lot of soul. Because he was meant to be an older bot, we kept his eyelids and eyebrows pretty simple with no deformations at all. But the eye animation we developed for him was fundamentally human. Like long gazes when lost in thought, quick eye darts when he was afraid, or like a well-timed blink for comedy. The mouth, on the other hand, was a completely different beast. At first, we tried out a like nutcracker style of mouth where you just have the entire bottom of the jaw hinge up and down like a nutcracker, no deformations at all. And it would have been very satisfying for those of us who like dad jokes, but it wouldn't have given us very many options for performance and speech and all of the emotion that he needed to show. Since his peanut shell was meant to be rubbery latex, we started out by making a whole batch of rubbery kind of latex looking blend shapes, like how we would approach a normal fleshy human face. And early on, we found this footage of a pretty terrifying modern Abraham Lincoln animatronic. Yikes. Initially, I thought, oh, well, the performance behind this is not super great, but the lips definitely had this interesting articulation that I've never seen anywhere else before. So we tried an approach kind of like this for Mr. Peanut's mouth, but having too much articulation on the lips meant that he started to look like a cartoon version of himself, too animated. And that look didn't really fit into the gritty world that we had built with all of the other bots. So we kept restricting and removing blend shapes until we were down from about 80 to maybe 6, and that's it. After a lot of trial and error, what we finally found was the sweet spot for our peanut, that less is sometimes a whole lot more. So next up, the mall. These sequences had just tons of characters, including these guys, the pillbots, who they helped catch our heroes in the desert and take them handcuffed to Mr. Peanut. And here they are from the book, another gorgeous image. Before I continue on to the rest of the bots in the mall, though, I need to take a quick detour to nerd out about my favorite minor character in the film, which is Perplexo. Here he is being a complete weirdo. He's a combination of like an old school carnival fortune teller machine and a cheesy parlor magician tucked away inside his own little theater, proscenium arch. He was meant to be highly theatrical, pompous, and very funny, but because of those double strikes that hit in 2023, we didn't have a voice performance for him for a long time either.
All right, now, newly awakened spirits of the underworld. Unbelievable. I command this gate to rise.
So when the strikes ended, we found out that the Russos had gotten Hank Azaria for this part, and I nearly did a spit take. I grew up in the 90s watching Simpsons on repeat. I can still quote nearly all of seasons 1 through 10. Try me. So I was pretty pumped by this casting choice, and I loved this character. Anyway, back on track. So we had another 80 or 90 characters to animate at this point to flesh out the world of the bots. Everything from the tire bots that you see here pulling the truck, to pill bots, to characters on wheels, on tank treads, hanging from the ceiling, like a giant walking donut, all sorts of stuff. The list goes on. So how to attack this big reveal of the mall? Anyway, we really started early on with a chess piece layout path just to start like figuring out how many characters do we need in a shot like this? Where should they go? How do we lay out all the different colors of characters so that it looks amazing when the whole shot gets put together? And we got approval pretty quickly for our chess piece pass, and then the real work started. Here's what a play blast of this epic shot looked like once we got it into animation for real. And I want to note that none of what you see here in this particular play blast was done with crowds, meaning it wasn't simulated or automated in any way. Unlike traditional crowds, where you might have a big group of roughly the same type of character, and you can kind of reuse animation and run that through Golem to create a crowd simulation. All of these characters needed custom animations. They all had totally different body types, different anatomy, different thoughts, dreams. They needed different backstories. So mocap was a very little help here, and we couldn't really automate very much at all. We did use Golem to generate crowds in the far backgrounds of these shots, though, often sort of the smoky backgrounds here. And for that, we created an additional 3 generic bot rigs that had head and body variants that could be randomized by our crowds team. And we fed them some simple cycles so that our crowds artists could fill in that very back row, so to speak. However, in the mall, 90 to 95% of the characters that you see are coming from animation directly. So for this huge number of background characters, I assigned an animator on each animator on my team to 2 or 3 different bots and gave them kind of carte blanche to do whatever they wanted within reason, as long as it made sense with the character's body type and the style of the film. And this was super fun for me because seeing all of these fun ideas and jokes and gags and insights even coming through in each one of the animators' clips, like I watch this sequence and I see my whole team here. That's really cool. They all really put their own personality into these bots. And what we got out of that effort was this very organic mix of styles and distinct characters that felt very real and lived in. And when we assembled all of that human-generated work and put the bots all together into the mall as a group, it was really magical. So I'll zoom through this next section as I think we're probably a little short on time. The breakdown here shows pretty clearly how often we end up ditching mocap and inventing something brand new, and the directors invariably change their mind. Anyway, inside the exclusion zone in the desert, everywhere except the mall, there's this constant danger of our heroes running into scavenger bots like these freaky things. These are the scavenger bots, or scavs for short. This guy was one of my favorites. I mean, look at him. He's got a face only a mother could love. And then there's this little 2-headed, 3-legged chihuahua, pretty great. The idea is like these scavs, they build and repair themselves out of whatever they can find or steal that's out there in the desert. And they act a little bit like zombies, a little dumber than the normies, definitely a threat to our heroes. And then there's this dude, I don't even know what to say about this one. He's got a circus tent on his head and a circular saw for a hand, and he's got some problems. So anyway, these were a lot of fun to animate and come up with crazy things for them to do. The Happyland is one of the places in the film where we did use a lot more Golem-generated crowd simulations from our small crowds team to help kind of fill out these shots and give the sense that there was a horde of these zombie, robots coming from Michelle and her gang of misfits. So similar to the far background bots in the mall, we made some generic scavenger bot rigs with swappable body parts that could be randomized in Golem. And that way you never see the same background bot twice. We also animated cycles for them. Generally, we used in animation, we would use the biggest appendage available. So if they had multiple different head sizes, we would pick the biggest one so that if that way we wouldn't have any intersections between body parts or characters. And yeah, that's a taste of how we put this big complex world of robots together from an animation standpoint. I have to thank every single person who worked on this film at Digital Domain. I think we're all really proud of how it turned out. And of course, thank you to Joe and Anthony Russo, Jeff Ford, and the whole production team at the Russo's Agfo Studios. And thank you also to Autodesk for having me here and for listening to this talk. And hope you enjoyed it.